So what's the secret? Have you ever wondered? It's about this time of year that most people start to, what is that code out there that uber super successful people have cracked that you haven't cracked yet? They seem to have figured it out and you're sitting there still spinning the Rubik's Cube of life. Was there a meeting under the bleachers in high school? Was it in the bathroom where they got together and they told you the secret code for how life is supposed to work? How doth one know all that there is to know? How do some people figure out how to do NFTs and cryptos and C3POs while you're still trying to figure out how to make your bank account balance and not overdraft at the Burger King? What do people like this know that we don't know? The Gary V's and the Grant Cardones and the Alex Hormozis of the world, what do they know? For starters, what's on his nose? What the heck is on his nose? But you look at it, you see him in the gym and you're like, I'm not doing it right. And you look at their stock portfolio investments and you're like, I don't get it. And there's no bags under their eyes and there's no wrinkles on their foreheads and they eat kale and like it. And you're like, what is up with this? Who likes harvested dirt? You just don't understand how it is that they do what they do. But if we're honest, it's much deeper than that, isn't it? There are these people that we see and they seem to like their spouse when you just tolerate chores. And they seem to know how to have fun while you feel trapped in a straitjacket of anxiety. And they seem rested when you feel exhausted. They look energized when you feel at the end of your rope. They're present when you feel absent. They appear free when you feel stuck. They can make decisions without chronically overthinking every single one of them while you remain caught in this chronic loop of indecisiveness. Their life looks deep and balanced and dynamic while you're caught on this hamster wheel of monotony and superficiality that's got you feeling completely exhausted and guilty for feeling that way. And maybe what makes it the absolute worst is parenting. Can I get an amen, parents? Because you look at some of these parents and other parents, they look like they're the freaking baby whisperer. And just how do you do it? How do you get your kids to act that way? Now, how do you get your kids to sit through a meal, not be babysat by a screen, and then at the end of the meal, get this, they take their plate from the table and they don't just go put it in the sink, they put that thing in the dishwasher. Hello, revolutionary idea. And then these kids, they come and they stand before their parents and they're like, Mom and Dad, thank you so much for preparing this delicious gourmet meal that you slaved so hard on. It is so nutrient dense and good for my body. And so now I'm gonna go upstairs and finish my homework and put myself down because you just deserve some you time. And so you enjoy that, Mom and Dad. And you guys laugh, but I want for you to know that's an actual interaction that we had with somebody who goes to this church. And I was like, are you AI? Is this even real? And can you raise my kids? Can I drop them off? I'll pick them up in 18 and I'll pay for college. All right, you take them. How do they do it? Is it Zens or breath work? Could it be colon boom? Maybe it's colon boom. Have you guys seen the ads for? All right, just me with the colon boom. Okay, is it creatine? Because apparently that's back from middle school. Is it an ice bath or is it hot yoga? Is it becoming vegan or carnivore? Is it mud water? No way it's mud water, right? No way you got to drink that stuff that's in that dude's cup from YouTube. That's not it. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's that you've got to do Blue Zones or the Vega Nerve or goat yoga, or maybe you've actually got to buy their course for $49.99 on YouTube to figure it all out. What is the thing? I don't know, because if you're anything like me, it's got you feeling pretty exhausted just trying to figure it all. Well, according to Jesus in Matthew 11, he says it's actually like that out there. He says that there are these hidden things, these secret things, these unseen things. However, the people who know them are not necessarily the people you think know them. I've learned that people who discover them look more like this guy on the right than the guy on the left. Now, you might know the guy on the left. He is superstar, rock star, Bono from the band U2. The guy on the on the right is Eugene Peterson, a guy who pastored a church of no more than 300 people. But the older that I get and the more of his writings that I read, there is something that he had in his soul that I want in mine. The less I care about looking like these, quote, influencers, and the more concerned I am with looking like him then. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, there's just something behind that smile that I want in my soul. That when I make it to the end and I look like that, I want to be smiling like that. There seems to be some substance, some peace, some transcendence, some shalom that he has in him that I want in me. But the secret is, it doesn't happen the way that you think that it happens. Now, for you theology nerds, I'm not talking today about Gnosticism or mysticism, whereby salvation comes from attaining some secret knowledge or gnosis, rather than through faith and grace in the revealed gospel of Jesus found in the scriptures. God conceals and God reveals, and Jesus calls it the gracious will of the Father to do so. Matthew 11:25. I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you've hidden these things from the wise and understanding and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for such was your gracious will. Why? Have you ever thought that? Why? Why is it the Father's gracious will to keep the secret a secret? If it's so good, why wouldn't he share it with everybody else? Why is it the gracious will of the Father to keep this secret and unseen and hidden from view? Why? You wanna know why? Because it's reserved for his kids. Because not everyone can be wise and understanding according to the world, but everyone can become childlike if they so choose. It is available to all who don't think that they have it all figured out. It belongs to the childlike, to those whose minds are not cluttered with pomp and pretense and an overblown sense of pride that muffles the sound of God's whispered grace, because you know that the still small voice is still the still small voice, right? That hearing the voice of the Lord belongs to those who will stoop low enough and wait long enough to hear it. One of the worst things that can happen to you this year, and it's happened to me in the past, is to begin this year under the false assumption that you've got it all figured out. That you've got your plan, you've got your system, you've got your structure, and you're just gonna work it, you're just gonna trust it, that you're headed for easy street. And one of the best things that could happen to you is to slow down long enough to evaluate whether or not you do. Application point number 1 today, this week, I just want for you to evaluate it. Did it work? Maybe do it like this. Did 2024 work? Did it work? When I look back on the last 12 months of my life, did it produce the kind of life that I want? Did it produce the kind of heart that I want? Am I becoming the kind of person that I want? Do I have the peace that I want? The shalom that I want? Are my relationships as healthy as I want? And maybe here's the big question, okay? Can I keep this up for the next 30 years? Whatever pace you're running at, nose to the grindstone, whatever caffeine or nicotine or schedule, however early you're having to wake up, or however late you're having to stay up, or however much scrolling you're having to do to numb the pain on the inside so that you can just keep going a little bit harder, a little bit more, and a little bit longer, because you're almost there. Can you keep it up for the next 30 years? And do you think you're gonna like that version of you 30 years down the road? When you look yourself in the mirror, is your spouse gonna like you? Are your friends gonna like you? Are your kids gonna appreciate you or respect you? Will the Lord be proud of you? Will you expect anybody for the sake of eternity? Can you keep it up for the next 30 years, this pace, this aggressive, frantic pace that you are running at right now? Maybe just take a moment and evaluate it. The belief of arrival is more toxic to your potential than potentially anything else. I'm gonna say that again. The belief of arrival is more toxic to your potential than potentially anything else. We must actively fight as followers of Jesus to stay humble and teachable and inquisitive and curious and open and childlike if we want what Jesus is offering right here. It is unavailable to those who think that they are beyond it. This is a universal principle in the kingdom. Growth is allergic to arrival. Like, I'm just coaching you right now. Whatever area you find yourself in, growth is allergic to arrival. The moment that you think that you've got it, in whatever industry that you're in, whatever career path you're on, whatever profession you walk in, you're like, I got it, I figured it out. At that moment, my friend, you become stuck and stagnant and somebody's getting ready to pass you. Growth is allergic to arrival. And so with that in mind, that there are these hidden things that seem to be the key to everything, can I share with you what I deeply believe is the secret to what your soul is desperate for in 2025? Doesn't matter if you say no, because I have a microphone. This is what I think you should spend 2025 doing, just trying to receive, just really get this in your bones today, receiving these 3 sentences from the mouths of Jesus. come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Hey, how's your soul? It's one of the really fun things that I get to do as a pastor, because like normal people don't get to do that, right? Like your accountant didn't ask you that this week. Your neighbor's not gonna, hey, your soul, how is it? Neighbors, this is not gonna, your boss, how's your soul? But one of the fun parts of being a pastor is I get to look you in your eyes and I get to ask you the question that's maybe the most important question, but the most unasked question, and it's, how's your soul? How is that internal composition of thoughts and emotions and desires and dreams and personality? How is the you that doesn't make the highlight reel? How connected to God and purpose do you feel? How much shalom do you feel? How are your levels of shame? How much shame are you carrying in your body? How fidgety are you? How much do you scroll and not know why? You don't even know what you're looking for, but you just keep on scrolling. How's your soul? How clear is your mind? How easily can you make decisions? How easily can you fall asleep? And how rested do you feel when you wake up? How proud of God, of you do you think that God is? How totally alive do you feel today? How's your soul? Most people that I talk to, their soul feels tired. You ask people, how are you doing? I'm tired. I'm busy or I'm tired. Those are like, it's all that I hear. It used to be fine, but no longer do I get fine, busy or tired. I'm busy or I'm tired. In our soul, it feels lethargic, it feels tattered, it feels shriveled, it feels starving, it feels exhausted. All right, I got 2 long quotes for you. I just want to see if they resonate, because just hold on for these 2 long quotes. Here we go. Number 1, Mark Buchanan, The Rest of God, Restoring Your Soul by Restoring Sabbath. One measure for whether or not you're rested enough, besides falling asleep in board meetings, is to ask yourself this: how much do I care about the things that I care about? When we lose concern for people, both the lost and the found, for the bride of Christ, for friendship, for truth and beauty and goodness, when we cease to laugh when our children laugh and instead yell at them to quiet down, or weep when our spouses weep and instead wish they didn't get so emotional, when we hear news of trouble among our neighbors and our first thought is, I hope that's not gonna involve us. When we stop caring about the things we care about, that's a signal we're too busy. We have let ourselves be consumed by the things that feed our ego but starve the soul. Busyness kills the heart. Not reading anybody's mail today? All right, we'll try another one. AJ Swoboda. He said, our time-saving devices, technological conveniences, and cheap mobility have seemingly made life much easier and interconnected. As a result, we have more information at our fingertips than anyone in history. Yet with all of this progress, we are ominously dissatisfied. In bowing at these sacred altars of hyperactivity, progress, and technological compulsivity, our souls increasingly pant for meaning and value and truth as they wither away, exhausted, frazzled, displeased, ever on edge. The result is a hollow culture that, in Paul's words, is ever learning but never able to come to a knowledge of the truth. Our bodies wear ragged. Our spirits thirst. We have an inability to simply sit still and be. As we drown ourselves in a 24/7 living, we seem to be able to do anything but quench our true thirst for the life of God. We have become perhaps the most emotionally exhausted, psychologically overworked, spiritually malnourished people in history. In the 50s, there was a study that was done, and this study calculated the pace that technology was progressing at. And they said that by the year 1985, that technology would get to a point where it would provide for us such ease of life that we would have so much more time to be able to do the things that we actually love and care about. And we would be able to sleep more, and we'd be more rested, and we'd be able to eat better food because of what technology was doing. That by the year 1985, it would take what was then a 55-hour work week, and technology would turn it into a 29-hour work week. How's that going? It's interesting what all of this technology was supposed to deliver was this utopian society that would automate things for us, giving us the ability to have more time for leisure and fun and connection and rest. And yet, in the 1950s, the average American slept 9 hours a day, and today they sleep 6.5. Did you know that before the invention of the light bulb that the average American slept 11 hours a day? And today they sleep 6.5? It seems, I don't know, maybe all of this technology that is supposed to produce for us this life of euphoria has actually become not a savior, but a slave master. Because now you never leave work, and you never leave connection, and you never leave the ability to answer another email or make another dollar. And so what you long for so deeply in your soul, and that you think technology is going to deliver, is actually sabotaging you from the inside out. So today, if you're looking for the secret, and you would say, like, you're tired, and maybe you're so tired that you're tired of being tired, and you feel spread thin, and like you've got no margin, and if the pressure and the grind and the rat race is starting to feel overbearing, and if the pace of life that keeps getting faster and faster is wearing you out, and if your marriage feels exhausting and your sex life feels washed up, and if the pressure of parenting or performing is crushing you, and a record of shame and disappointment and failure is playing on repeat in your mind, then no matter how many times you've gone to church and you've heard these verses before, hear Jesus of Nazareth saying to you afresh again, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light. And maybe close your eyes for just a second. And I want for you to imagine this year, just try to like embody yourself in your mind, and like imagine this year, your soul going from weary to rested. Really try to envision yourself like in your skin, in your shoes, in your commute, in your home, in your workplace. Like see yourself going from exhausted, and now you're energized. Like, try to envision like yourself from distracted to disciplined, from self-centered to sacrificial, from egotistical to others-minded, from striving to enjoying, from comparing to celebrating, from ambitious to content, from greedy to gratitude, from heavy to light. That'd be a pretty good year. You can open your eyes. Now, let me help you understand that what I'm talking about today is not a passive, lazy, sit on the couch, honk if you love Jesus version of Christianity, okay? This Jesus who is inviting you in to come and to be with him is the single most influential, successful, impactful, world-changing, moving and shaking person that has ever been, okay? I want you to know that Jesus' little startup called Christianity would crush whatever you have on your Pinterest vision board, my friend. Like Christianity has it's done more for the world. It's built bigger buildings and sold more books and raised more capital and helped more people and influenced more of society and touched more lives than anything else. We are not a take a nap and sing kumbaya around a campfire kind of church, okay? We are a revival or die, awakening or bust, risk it all, change the world, revolution or nothing kind of church. Can I get an amen? Amen. But the way that we get there might be much different than the way that you think that we get there. And wherever you want to go this year, whatever hill you're trying to climb, the way that you get there might be way different than you think you get there. Jesus in Matthew 11 is giving what's called a contrast talk, and he's highlighting the yoke of the Pharisees, which leads to burnout and exhaustion, with his yoke, which leads to life and flourishing. But if you'll excuse my less than perfect exegetical work for a second, can I contrast it with something else? Is that okay? I want to contrast the life that Jesus is offering with the life of modernity, secularism, and the American dream. Okay? I want to show you the invitation of secularism, modernity, and the American dream contrasted with Jesus' vision of life. This is the invitation of secularism, modernity, and the American dream. Come to me and labor. Carry heavy burdens, and I'll give you success. My yoke will take everything from you. Time, virtues, morals, youth, family. For I am demanding and exhausting to your heart. And you will find a never-ending longing for just a little bit more in your souls. You will try to numb it, for my yoke is slavery. And my burden gets heavier and heavier until one day it crushes you into the grave. The casket closes and you go back to the nothingness you came from. But don't worry, the reward for my burden now lives in your bank account to be accessed at 65. So rise and grind, it's worth it. My favorite part. That is the offer of secularism, modernity, and the American dream. Everything that you swipe, every ad that you see, almost every employer that you work for, every, American dream that's like echoing in your mind is selling you that invitation. Come and labor. Work for me. Exhaust yourself. Expend yourself. And what you'll find is that what you're wanting, when you get it, you'll just want a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more until one day you're 65 and you're old and you're bitter and you're angry and you're frustrated. You got all of the money in your bank account, but no joy in your soul. And your relationships are shriveled and small and sad. And you can't figure out why, but it's too late because it's over. Then there's Jesus' offer, the invitation of Jesus and eternity and the kingdom of God. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. See, Jesus says, come to me, and in contrast, he doesn't say, I'll make you successful or influential or rich. He says, come to me and I will give you rest, which is so funny because that's what we ultimately want. The only reason that we want money or success or fortune or fame oftentimes is because we want what those things can provide, which would be like rest. And so we work so hard to get these things that we think is going to deliver the thing that we actually want when Jesus is there saying, I've got it already. I've got rest for your souls. Jesus' vision for your life is about rest. Salvation is about rest, and not just rest for your body, but rest for your soul, like a unique, different kind of rest. And this is the rest that money can't buy. This is the rest that you can't get enough sleep to catch up on, that a day off or a vacation away or some Netflix and chill cannot produce, my friend. This is eternal rest. Biblically, eternal reward is about rest, and eternal judgment is about a lack of rest. Those who don't know Jesus enter into the rest of their master in Matthew 25:23, and those who know Jesus enter into the rest of their master in Matthew 25:23, and those who don't know Jesus have no rest day or night forever, Revelation 14:11. You see, it's as the great church father Augustine said it, we have no rest until we rest in Jesus. For our hearts are restless until they rest in him. It's as C.S. Lewis says it in Mere Christianity. Human history is the long, terrible story of man trying to find something other than God which will make him happy. Oh, if you could just get that in your heart today. That like so much of what happens is I convince myself that there was something out there somewhere. There's someone or some experience or some trip or some piece of art or some clothing or some car or some renovation or some house or lake house or boat house or beach house, that when I get that thing, that it will make me happy. And humanity, all of humanity is this long, terrible, sad, played on repeat story of man trying to find something other than God to make him happy, and it does not work. Dane C. Ortlund, in his groundbreaking book, Gentle and Lowly, The Heart of Christ for Sinners and Sufferers. And this is my first book recommendation for the year. Get ready for 365 more, people, okay? And so for the love of God, get this book, all right? I want for y'all to get this book. Outside of like the Bible, this may be one of the most beautiful shaping visions of Jesus that I at least have in my heart. I don't know if you know this or not, but there are a lot of different words that you and I might use to try to describe Jesus, but there are only two words in all of the scriptures that Jesus himself uses to describe his heart. And those words are gentle and lowly. And Dane just takes us deep into our envisionment of who Jesus is and who Jesus is not, and what it means for him to be somebody who is gentle and lowly and heart. And so, man, please get this book and read it. But in this book, he says, you don't need to be unburdened or collect yourself and then come to Jesus. So good. Your very burden is what qualifies you to come. No payment is required, he says. I will give you rest. His rest is gift, not transaction. Whether you are actively working hard to crowbar your life into smoothness, labor, or passively finding yourself weighed down by something outside your control, heavy laden, Jesus Christ desire that you find rest. You know, one of the things that I find so remarkable after all of these years walking with Jesus, after walking with him as long as I have, I just cannot get over the fact that there is this God who is eternal, who is all-knowing, who's omniscient, who's got all of the power and all of the authority, and that yet somehow he is the most intimate, personal being in the universe. It blows my mind that the invitation of Jesus is come to me. Not come to a meeting, not come to a system, not come to a strategy, come to a someone. Come to me. Get away with me. Be with me. Sit with me. Talk with me. Oh, I don't know what you got on your planner this year. I don't know what's on your priority list. I don't know what's on your schedule. But I know that you need to rearrange everything that you thought that this year was going to be about. And you need to decide and determine today that you're going to get to Jesus, that you're going to be with Jesus. You just need to say yes right now. That I'm gonna say no to a million other things. There are tons of places I don't gotta go. I don't gotta go on that trip. I ain't gotta make it to the gym. And I ain't gotta make it to see the 7 wonders of the world, but I gotta get to be with Jesus. I gotta be with him. I gotta sit with him. I gotta spend time with him. I gotta hear his voice. I gotta sit in his presence. I gotta behold his beauty. I gotta talk to him, hear from him. I gotta be with Jesus. I gotta stop putting it off. There's a million things you don't gotta do this year, but I'm telling you the one thing that you got to do, secret to everything, is you got to get to him. You got to get to Jesus. There was this movement leader, and I was listening to him talk, and this guy's just a mover and shaker in Christianity. Like, you can just imagine whoever it is in your field, just like, this dude's like Yoda. You know what I'm talking about? Okay? And he's older now, and so he's like done the dang thing, and he's, slayed dragons and written books, and he's networked and planted churches, and just totally awesome. Up there in age, and so he looks like the dude from Up, just totally adorable, and he and his wife are like still totally in love. They like love each other and hold hands and flirt. It's just like total life goals, right? And so he did this talk, and there was an opportunity to ask him questions. And so the first question was like, how'd you do it? How do you do all that you did but not become like all those other pastors? How do you end up not burning yourself out and wrecking your marriage and stealing money and, how do you end up not, wrecking your faith and deconstructing? Like, how do you stay faithful and like love your spouse and not get addicted to porn and, still slay giants and change the world? How did you make it this 40-year run and keep your soul intact? How'd you do it? And everybody's kind of like leaning in with bated breath, waiting for Yoda to unveil his wisdom. And this is what he says. I don't know. We're all like, what do you mean what do you mean you don't know? Because if you don't know, we're dead, right? Like, you're the guy who's supposed to know. What do you mean you don't know? He says, they go, let us ask the question again. How do you do all that you did? How do you have all the impact? How do you make, all the moves for the sake of the kingdom? How do you, preach the gospel and plant churches and write books, but like keep your soul intact and keep your marriage healthy and thriving? And he goes, yeah, I don't know. He goes, I just wake up in the morning and like hang out with Jesus. And I sit with Jesus and I talk with Jesus and I pray in my prayer language to Jesus, and I sing songs in the spirit to Jesus, and I sit and I wait and I listen for Jesus to speak. And then throughout my day, I just try to figure out how many moments I can steal away with Jesus. And after I get finished talking to someone, I talk to Jesus about that someone, and if there's anything else that Jesus might want to do in their life or say to them, and I just try to think about Jesus. And when my thoughts kind of like wander away and I start thinking about other things, I start to realize, it's been a little while since I thought about Jesus. I should probably start to think a little bit more about Jesus. And then when I realize I've just been talking a lot, I kind of just stop talking and I just try to listen and see if there's anything that Jesus wants to say with me. I don't know. I just kind of like spend time with Jesus, because what I've realized is I can make this big list of all of the things that I'm not supposed to do but end up doing them anyways, or I could spend time with the one person who could actually keep me from doing them. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess that checks out because I've never heard the story of someone who's like, I was hanging out with Jesus, and then I woke up in Vegas with a neck tattoo, married to a clown, okay? Like, I've never heard that story. There tends to be this gravitational pull and force to life with Jesus. And so I'm just telling you today that, like, you need to get to Jesus this year. Because you've been putting it off for far too long, my friend. And it's always been next year or next decade, or once I get over this busy season, or once I get this part of my life in order. But could it be until you get that part of your life in order, nothing else in your life is gonna come in order? Because you won't get to Jesus, and you keep blaming it on everything else that's keeping you from him, but it's actually you not being with him that's keeping you from everything else. I wish I could tell you guys, like, this stuff works. It just actually works. It really works, like getting to Jesus. And like my wife would tell you, like there's times I'm in a bad mood, I'm pouty, I'm a grumpy pants, I'm a grouch. And she's like, I need you to go in your study and go do that Jesus thing that you do. Just like, go spend some time with him so that you can come out a different person. Guys, there's times where, like, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling the week. I'm not feeling whatever I got to do. But I come to hear a church on Sunday, and I get with Jesus, and all of a sudden, everything in my soul that was so frustrating, that was so daunting, and that was so heavy gets lifted because, you know what? I got to Jesus, and I'm just telling you, some of you need to get to Jesus. I don't know how many times I need to say it for you to start to believe it, that the most important thing on your list, to-do list this year, is to get with Jesus. It's the secret place. It's the powerful place. This is the place that's going to make all the difference in your life. You don't have to do a million different things, but the one thing that you have to do is get to Jesus. If you got sin, go to Jesus. If you got grief, go to Jesus. If you're broke down and tore up and still addicted and completely exhausted and your hair's a mess, you got drool on your face and you're unsure of where to start or what you're even gonna ask, get to Jesus. You gotta get to Jesus. Make this the anthem of your year. Write it in your Bible, write it on your hand, tattoo it on your body. I'll pay for it, like whatever it takes. Get to Jesus. Jesus says this, he says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, Matthew 11:29. Come to me and then take my yoke upon you and learn from me. To take a yoke in Jesus' day was an invitation to become a disciple. And a yoke would be a rabbi's set of teachings. It's their way of viewing God and life and Torah. And this can initially feel like kind of strange advice if you're like being an honest reader of the scriptures, because this was an illustration from agriculture. And for those of you who haven't done a lot of farming lately, let me show you what a yoke is, okay? So this is a yoke. And a yoke was an instrument of work and a labor and a toil. And it was designed to plow fields. It was designed to cultivate land. And so it's actually pretty interesting and kind of astonishing and kind of like a shock factor that Jesus invites these people who are weary and heavy laden to come to him. And then what he says is, I want to put an instrument of work on you. I think you're confused, Jesus. And I love the way that the New Testament scholar Frederick Dale Bruner speaks about this. He says, a yoke is a work instrument. Thus, when Jesus offers a yoke, he offers what we might think tired workers need least. They need a mattress or a vacation, not a yoke. But Jesus realizes that the most restful gift he can give the tired is a new way to carry life, a fresh way to bear responsibilities. Realism sees that life is a succession of burdens. We cannot get away from them. Thus, instead of offering escape, Jesus offers equipment. I love that. The offer of rest is not an offer of escape. You can't escape life, man. Like, life, newsflash, is hard. And there are heavy things. Raising kids is heavy. Financial well-being is heavy. Fighting for a vibrant marriage is heavy. Justice for the poor and oppressed is heavy. Revival in our generation is heavy. There's an emotional weight to life, and you don't get to abdicate that responsibility. So Jesus gives you a new way to carry that responsibility. How many of you know that you can have the wrong tool or the right tool for the right job, and it makes all the difference in the world? Can I get an amen, men? Like, you're trying to do a project, trying to put something together, you got the wrong tool, and you want to kill somebody with the wrong tool. Usually it's your kids, right? And it's not your kids, it's not their fault, it's not the problem, it's not even the problem's problem, it's the tool's problem. Like, have you ever tried to, use a flathead screwdriver, like when you need a Phillips head? So frustrating. just keeps slipping away. Or you ever try to cut something, you got one of those saws and it cuts this way, but it doesn't cut this way. And you're like, I'm gonna lose a finger. I'm gonna definitely lose a finger if I try this, because you got the wrong tool for the wrong job. But when you get the right tool for the right job, what took you 2 hours before, all of a sudden takes you 2 minutes. Fellas, does anybody else know what I'm talking about? Am I the only one just trying to fit square peg, round hole? Okay, Jesus goes, there is a right way to manage the burdens of life, and it is not escapism, it is not a nap, it is not the mind-numbing scroll of Netflix. It is coming to him and taking his yoke upon you. I love that Jesus, more than he wants to give you a nap and send you back out into the chaos of life to find yourself exhausted all over again, he wants to give you a new way of life where you walk in step with him. You see, somebody needs this today. The hardest way to follow Jesus is to live like everyone else out there in the world and then to try to cram all the Christian stuff in as well. This is what leads to religious exhaustion, and this is how it usually works. Somebody comes to an environment like this, and they're like, I want to make a change in my life. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to do all this religious Christian stuff. I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to go to the Bible studies, and I'm going to attend the groups, and I'm going to go on the trips, and I'm going to start to, but I'm going to keep doing everything else in my life as well. And I'm going to live like the rest of the world. I'm going to be just as materialistic. I'm going to be just as hurried and just as fast. And I'm going to try to say yes to all these things and go to all these games and watch all this stuff on TV. And then they find themselves getting so burnt out because they're so spread thin that what they do is they start to quit all the church stuff. I stop going to church on Sunday. I'll stop showing up at group. So I'll stop serving. I'm so spread thin right now. What I'll actually do is I'll go to this church where I can just I kind of sneak in the back and just be a face in the crowd. I don't really have to participate. I can just receive but not actually participate. And it's the lie. You quit using the tools that are supposed to be life-giving because you're trying to keep the life of everyone else and grab hold of the life of Jesus, and it doesn't work that way. I love the way that one author put it. He said, you can't have the lifestyle. You're not going to get the life of Jesus unless you adopt the lifestyle of Jesus. If you want the life that Jesus provides, you must be willing to walk in step with the life that Jesus lives. Here's what's so interesting about the yoke analogy. I'm going to put it back up there, but with two oxen. What's interesting about the analogy is two oxen were yoked to each other so that they would move in sync with one another. And they would do this as they worked through the field. And a young and inexperienced ox was typically paired with an older, more experienced ox. And the experienced one knew the pace to walk at, knew how to turn, knew what to do with the ruts, knew when to pull, when to give. And the young ox would learn from the experienced ox. I want for you to know, my friend, that I am the young ox. And you are the young ox. I try to plow the field way too fast. I get in such a hurry that then I need to lie down when I should be working. I turn in all the wrong ways. I veer outside my lane and I stop and stare off into the blue sky. While the other older ox waits patiently for me to re-engage, to walk at the pace that he walks at, as opposed to the frantic hurry that I'm always in. The experienced ox, the infinite, eternal God whose name is Jesus, he walks alongside us and he says, hey, we're going to plow this field, but we're going to do it nice and slow. We're going to do it slow and steady. And this is so hard for me. Because in the slowing, I start to feel anxious that I'm not living up to my full potential. I start feeling like I'm letting God down and letting the world down, and I'm not being as awesome as I could, or I'm not being who he's created me to be, and I feel like I've got all of this stuff that I've got to do that I'm going to miss out on, and if I don't hurry up, and there's people to save, and there's movements to lead, and there's darkness to push back, and there's lives to save, and there's messages to preach, and there's books to write, and I'm in such a hurry because the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and churches are closing left and right, and so we got to go right now. Jesus goes, would you slow down for just a second? And would you ask yourself, do you think I'm sovereign? You should ask yourself that question. Do you think God is sovereign? Do you think he's in control of everything? And do you think that he's ordained every single day and that before you've lived a single day of your life that he's wrote about it in his book of life? Well, if so, if God is sovereign and every day is ordained, then that means that there is a time for every season under the sun, which means that it does not matter how fast you run, you can never get anywhere early. And if you get there early, do you know what you get the reward of getting? Waiting longer. Because if God has ordained every single day before you've lived a single one of them, and if there's a time for every season under the sun, then it means there's a time for development of character. There's a time for difficulty. There's a time for realizing that, a lot happens underneath ground and behind the scenes before it ever comes to life or makes it to the stage. And so you should appreciate whatever moment that you're in and process that you're in, because God is going to do his work of development, my friend, no matter how fast you run. So you might as well just be present in the moment as opposed to being so hurried to get to that next thing to find out that you're just going to have to wait anyways for God to do his work and catch up. See, I found that often I want Jesus to take my yoke upon him. I want him to move at my pace and walk in the direction that I want to go and march to the beat of my drum, but Jesus doesn't roll like that. The option to walk with him is negotiable, but the pace is set. And I found it's usually much slower than I'd like for it to be. Here's the other thing that's so interesting about two oxen yoked to each other. Do you know what it communicates? Dependence. It communicates that you cannot pull alone. Yoking yourself to Jesus is an admission of need. And as Americans in 2024, one of the hardest things that we have to do is to admit our need. The gospel is Jesus does all the heavy lifting. You know that, right, my friend? The gospel is that you need him. Do you know what else looks like a yoke? Put it back up there on the screen. A cross. And on the cross, Jesus does all the heavy lifting. He pays for all the sin. He shoulders the perfect life. He dies the vicarious death. He does the hard work of resurrecting from the grave. And on that cross, there's a thief on his left and there's a thief on his right. And the thief on his right got under the yoke of that cross. And to that thief, Jesus said, today you'll be with me in paradise. Today you'll receive rest. There are these great theological truths. That God is omnipotent and that God is omniscient, that God is omnipresent. Can I remind you today that you're omni-nothing? You are exactly omni-nothing. You are all nothing. And he's got all the power, all the wisdom, all the ability in the world, and you continually lean on yourself. Since Christmas, we've been riding bikes a lot with my kids. And we live on this big hill. My driveway would be like Mount Everest, okay? It's a dangerous hill. It's tough to go up and go down. It's scary to back a car down. It's scary to walk down, okay? Like all the exercise that I need is just taking my trash can up and down my driveway. And so we've been riding bikes a lot since Christmas with my kids down in the cul-de-sac. And every time that we get done, my kids, they look at me and they go, heavy. We're not speaking in completed sentences now. Just heavy. It's heavy. Would you like me to do something? Carry, heavy, carry, heavy. Okay, and so they want me to carry these bikes up the hill. And I know that it might not look this way because, kind of from afar, and I got these lights on me. I'm not the athletic specimen that I may look like standing before you today, all right? Like, I might not be as ripped and shredded as it looks like, but I did sleep at a Holiday Inn last night. So, I did do, 15 push-ups to start the year. Almost cracked my sternum. So I'm not claiming that I am, in peak athletic performance by any stretch of the imagination. However, I want for you to know that I can carry both those bikes up the hill at the same time, okay? And what is so impossible for my kids to do, what feels so heavy for them, so easy for me. How much more is that true with your Heavenly Father? Right now, you are carrying some impossibly heavy things. And oh, how easy it would be for him to carry it. I was working with a leadership coach, And I was complaining to him because that's what you do to leadership coaches. And I was talking to him about all the heavy burdens that I felt on my shoulders, budgets and building payments and staff salaries, and mama needs a new car, and darkness in our city, and global strategy, and people wilding out in their marriage, and all of this stuff, that I feel the weight of it on my shoulders. And he said, so Jesus said his burden was light, right? I said, allegedly, Jesus. Allegedly, Jesus said that. He said, so if Jesus said that his burden is light and what you're carrying around is really heavy, don't you think it might mean that you're carrying stuff that Jesus hasn't asked you to carry? I was like, yeah, that math seems to math. And so I want to ask you, if Jesus said that his burden is light, and he did, we just read it like 19 times, and what you're carrying around feels really heavy, and do you think that it's possible that maybe you're carrying something that Jesus hasn't asked you to carry? Something about that really resonated with me, because somebody like me with the ambition that I have and the vision that I have for our church and our generation in this city, and wanting to see revival, and knowing that there's so much to do, and feeling the weight of it all on my shoulders, and like the time is now and we got to go, and just going, hey, if that feels heavy to you, bro, maybe I haven't asked you to carry that. And I just think that somebody needs that today. Our weariness is oftentimes evidence that we've yoked ourselves to something other than Jesus. Our weariness is oftentimes evidence that we've yoked ourselves to something other than Jesus. And we say that it's my boss, it's the wife, it's the job, it's my mom. No, it's the yoke, my friend. It's the reason that every job you end up in, you're stressed, and every friendship you get taken advantage of, and every relationship runs you ragged. It's the yoke, the wrong yoke. You've yoked yourself to others' approval. You've yoked yourself to the American dream. Wherever there is weariness, there you find evidence that you are yoked to the wrong thing. So just maybe one last time here today, the words of Jesus as translated by Eugene Peterson in his famous Message translation. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest, walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me. You'll learn to live freely and lightly.